Hello students, so in this presentation I shall be discussing about the part 2 of polymorphism, function overloading and constructor overloading. In my previous presentation I have discussed about the topic known as polymorphism. So polymorphism means having many forms. Now polymorphism can be divided into two types, which were compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism. Compile time polymorphism can be implemented using function overloading and operator overloading, whereas runtime polymorphism can be implemented using virtual functions. Chapter number 5 includes the topic which is function overloading. I have also discussed about function overloading. So when there are multiple functions with the same name but different parameters, then those functions are said to be overloaded. If you look at each of these three member functions for the class known as employee, they have the same name, which is emp over. The only thing that they differ is in the number of parameters. The first overloaded function contains 4 parameters, the second overloaded function contains 3 parameters, and the third overloaded function contains 2 parameters. So in this way, function overloading has been achieved through these 3 member functions taken together. So that was all about the function overloading. Okay, I had already discussed about this program in the previous presentation. Now in this presentation I shall be discussing about the topic called constructor overloading. Okay, so for this topic I suggest all of you refer to the section 5.7 in your book. So what do you mean by constructor overloading? In C++, we can have more than one constructor in a class with the same name, as long as each has a different list of arguments or parameters. And this concept is known as constructor overloading and is quite similar to function overloading. Now note one thing, that a constructor is called depending only upon the number and type of arguments passed. Now here is a sample program which demonstrates the concept of constructor overloading. Okay, so I suggest refer to section 5.7 in order to view this program. The program consists of a class identified by the name employee. If you look inside this class, it has got two constructors. Okay, the first one is the constructor having no parameters, so it's a default constructor. The second one is also a constructor, okay, but it consists of 4 parameters, namely ecode, ename, edesic and esalary. Okay, so this one is a parameterized constructor. Now if you look at both these constructors, they have the same name, which is employee, and it resembles with the name of the class, which is also employee. The only thing that they differ is in the number of parameters. Okay, the default constructor consists of no parameters, whereas the parameterized constructor consists of 4 parameters. So now we can conclude from here that overloading has been achieved through both these constructors, and this type of overloading is known as constructor overloading, because here we are overloading a special type of member function inside a class, which is the constructor. So that's what have been said here. We can have more than one constructor in a class with the same name, as long as each has different list of arguments or parameters. And this concept is constructor overloading. So now for this class named employee, there are 4 private data members, 2 overloaded constructors declared as public, and 1 member function display which is also declared as public. The program shall start with the main function because the main is the inception of a program, and inside its body, the first statement creates 2 different objects, emp1 and emp2, out of this class named employee. The first object emp1 takes no initial values as arguments, whereas the second object emp2 takes 4 initial values as arguments. So as soon as the first object emp1 has been created with no initial values as arguments, so for that object automatically this default constructor shall be invoked with no arguments or parameters. Now the body of this constructor has been defined outside of the class, so the control is again going to jump from this portion of the program into here. Okay, so this is the body region of this default constructor employee. In this body region, this default constructor is initializing the data members of the class, which are emp code, emp name, emp desig, and emp salary. It's initializing the first data member emp code with the value 0, the second data member emp name with a white space, the third data member emp desig with a white space, and then the fourth data member emp salary with the value 0. So all these values assigned into these data members are specific to this particular object only, which is emp1. Then just after the creation of the object emp1, another object emp2 has been created out of this class known as employee. Okay, this time with these 4 initial values, which are 100, Sujata, computer, and 12500. So once this object emp2 has been created with these 4 initial values, automatically this particular constructor shall be invoked with these 4 parameters. The first 2 parameters, eCode and eName, will take the initial values 100 and Miss Sujata, and the second 2 parameters, eDesig and eSalary, will take the initial values PGT computer and 12500. Now the body of this parameterized constructor is also defined outside of this class, so the control is again going to jump from this portion of the program to here. Now again inside its body region, the parameterized constructor this time is going to initialize the data members emp code, emp name, emp desig, and emp salary with the values from the parameters eCode, eName, eDesig, and eSalary. The value 100 from the parameter eCode shall be assigned to the data member emp code. The value Miss Sujata from the parameter eName shall be assigned into the data member emp name, and the value PGT computer from the parameter eDesig shall be assigned into the data member emp desig, and lastly the value 12500 from the parameter eSalary shall be assigned into the data member emp salary. So now all these values from these parameters assigned into the data members are specific to this particular object only, which is emp2. Now once the first statement gets executed after the creation of 2 different objects emp1 and emp2, and after the respective constructors getting invoked, the control then moves into the next line. Okay, in this line, using the first object emp1, it is trying to access the member function display. The access has been granted to it because the member function display has been declared as public. And soon after that, the object emp1 accesses the member function display. Okay, so from this calling function, the control is going to jump into the call function that is over here, and since the body part is absent, it's not defined inside this class. Okay, so the control is again going to move from this portion of the program into here, where the body region for the member function display has been defined. Okay, now the body region has been defined for this member function display outside of this class. Okay, so the scope resolution operator, as denoted by this 2: has been included. Okay, the first statement inside its body region prints the text employee code, okay, along with the value of the data member emp code. Now that this was specific to this particular object only, which is emp1, and since for that the default constructor has been invoked, so the value of the data member emp code that was assigned was 0. So employee code 0 is going to be displayed in the output. So here it is, employee code 0. Then the next statement prints the text employee name and the value of the data member emp name, which was nothing but a white space getting assigned into the data member emp name when the default constructor employee has been invoked to the object emp1. So this statement prints employee name and a white space. So employee name and a white space. The third and the fourth statement prints the text employee designation and employee salary along with their data members emp desig and emp salary. Okay, the values for their data members emp desig and emp salary can be seen from here. Okay, that is space for the data member emp desig and 0 for the data member emp salary. So employee designation a white space and employee salary 12,500 shall be displayed in the output. And here it is, employee designation, then a white space, and employee salary 0. Now remember that this portion of the output has been produced when these data members are initialized with these values through this default constructor, when this particular object named emp1 has been created. And then using that object emp1, the member function display has been invoked to display the output using these statements. So on executing these 4 statements through the member function display corresponding to the object emp1, I get to see this part of the output. Now just after this statement gets executed, the control then moves into the next statement. Okay, this time it uses a different object. Okay, the second object named emp2, and using this object it is again trying to invoke the member function display. Now you already know that for this particular object named emp2, the initial values passed are these. So for this object emp2, the parameterized constructor has been called, okay, and the initial values are passed into these parameters, and from these parameters, okay, the data members had been initialized. Now on executing this particular statement, okay, with the object emp2, it tries to invoke the member function display. Okay, so from here the control is going to move to the call function that is over here, okay, and then execute its body region, okay, that is this portion. The first statement displays the text employee code along with the value of the data member emp code, okay, which is nothing but the value coming out from the parameter e code, okay, which takes the initial value 100. Okay, so 100 will be assigned into the data member emp code, okay, from the parameter e code. So employee code 100 gets displayed in the output, and that can be seen clearly here. The second statement displays the text employee name along with the value of the data member emp name, okay, which takes the value Miss Sujata from the parameter ename. So employee name Miss Sujata gets displayed in the output. So here is this displayed text in the output. The third statement prints the text employee designation along with the value of the data member emp desi, okay, which takes its value from the initial value pgt computer that has been passed to the parameter edesi, okay. So the initial value pgt computer from the parameter edesi, okay, shall be assigned into the data member emp desi, okay. This gives employee designation pgt computer in the output. So here it is, employee designation pgt computer. Then the fourth statement displays the text employee salary along with the value of the data member emp salary, okay, which is the value 12,500 that was assigned into the parameter e salary, okay. So the value 12,500 from the parameter e salary, okay, shall be again assigned into the data member emp salary, and that gives the text employee salary and 12,500 into the output. So here it is, employee salary 12,500. So keep in mind that these initial values has been passed into these data members through this parameterized constructor, okay, where those initial values has been first passed into these four parameters, namely ecode, ename, edesig, and esalary, and from these parameters only they get assigned into the data members emp code, emp name, emp desig, and emp salary. That's why on executing these four statements, which are specific to the object emp2, I get to see this portion of the output. Now remember that this portion of the output is specific to the object emp1, for which the default constructor has been called and the data members initialized with these values. And this portion of the output is through this particular object, which is emp2, for which the parameterized constructor has been called and the data members are being initialized with the values assigned from the parameters, okay. And the values assigned into these parameters are from these initial values at the time of the creation of the object emp2. Now the main function ends with a closing parenthesis soon after executing this particular statement, okay. So the program ends here, and this is the output that is produced. So that's everything about constructor overloading, and with this I end my presentation here.